I've been doing a lot of publicity for the movie Uncle Tom. And I had an interview with the BBC radio. And I've interviewed BBC before, and the same thing happened. After a few things about the movie, I was then asked what I think about race and racism in America. And I said that it is no longer a major factor. Well, what about the Confederate generals after whom military bases have been named? Surely you protest that. I said, I'm indifferent. You're indifferent? There's a major who happens to be black who's deeply offended. I said, he can be offended, he cannot be offended. I don't care. Ask me about whether I am angry at the fact that 3% of the kids at my former high school can do math at grade level. Why am I never getting asked about the 14 people shot and killed in Chicago weekend before last, over 100 wounded? Ask me about the 50% urban dropout rate in high school. Ask me about something important. Were we to rename all of these military bases, were we to take down all the statues you find offensive, what would be the result? Would there be a decline in the percentage of people that feel that race and racism is a major problem in America? Would there be a sudden increase in going to school? Because after all, the bigots have been removed, so now I can be reasonably assured if I work hard, there'll be a payoff, whereas before I wasn't working hard because the man was going to stop me. Really? And this Bubba Wallace guy, I never heard of him until the news thing, did you? Was he a big deal driver? And supposedly, he didn't even see it. Supposedly, one of his crew persons saw a noose hanging from the garage where he had his car. Turns out the noose had been there for a long time, well before that stall had been handed out to Bubba Wallace. Turns out other garages have ropes. This is the only one that was fashioned into a noose, but it wasn't done so because of him. And the FBI sends 15 agents? What were those guys doing before? What cases were these 15 agents pulled off to go into Newsgate? And the FBI agents concluded not a hate crime. Apparently, it's a garage pool, that's all. But oh, Bubba, he's not going to let it go. He's relieved he wasn't the target of a hate crime, but hey, it's still a noose.
The FBI saying you were not the target of a hate crime and that it had been there at least since last October. When you found that out on Tuesday, Bubba, what was your initial reaction?
I was relieved, just like many others, to know that it wasn't targeted towards me. But it's still frustrating to know that, people are always going to test you and always just going to try to debunk you. And that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around now from saying I'm a fake and all this stuff, and that I reported it when it was news that was brought to me. It was information that was brought to me that was already reported. And so I was just kind of following suit. But all in all, it's another day.
What was that? I'm relieved I'm not the target of a hate crime, but hey, people were saying that I reported it, and so, in a sense, I'm still a victim.
I had questioned my crew chief. I had questioned my crew member who was African-American who had found it and who was outraged by it. I talked to him multiple times.
African-American crew member, he found it. He was outraged. Good thing he had diversity. Had it been a white crew member, he might have seen the same thing and not been outraged, in which case we wouldn't have had the scandal, right?
Checked throughout the garages that were around us, and nobody had a knot like we had on our garage pool in the shape of a noose, a full blatant noose.
A full blatant, full out noose with fangs and everything. Had smoke coming out of its nostrils. It was one of those vicious nooses.
This is not like a regular, this is not like a Nascar style.
No. It was a monster noose.
Tying a knot. It's not like it was on all the other garages.
No, it was a mega noose.
No, this was
a roots noose. This was a Kunta Kinte kind of thing happening here. You kidding me?
And it could have been there in 2019, which is that's great. It wasn't directed towards me. So to answer your question, I was relieved, but I knew that
Fake news.
that this was
Fake news.
going to flip to the
White lies, fake news.
negative side, and all of that side of everything was just going to come flowing out because people.
All of what's going to come flowing out. I mean, this is kind of getting me turned on now. Look at this.
Negative side, and all of that side of everything was just going to come flowing out
Ooh,
because
it's going to come flowing out. All the racism is going to come flowing out. Is that?
people say it's a hoax.
Ooh.
Compare me to
Well, it kind of was a hoax.
Smollett, just outrageous stuff.
You mean Juicy Smollett?
NASCAR is investigating a horrible incident.
A horrifying, racist, jarring, disturbing,
Heinous, perverted,
ugly,
Cowardly,
dreadful,
hateful,
stunning, shocking, appalling, disgusting reminder of who, again, this sport is for.
A noose found in the garage stall of Bubba Wallace.
Obviously, this is completely appalling, but do you think it's surprising?
No, it's not surprising at all.
And NASCAR is often considered a sport that is tethered to white folk, tethered to the South.
the Confederate flag in a sport that is overwhelmingly white and certainly dominant among Southerners.
And NASCAR has been trying to somewhat move away from it. And I say somewhat in kind of air quotes.
They were going to remove Confederate imagery. To think that that's going to happen in a span of 2 weeks after all that NASCAR has been for all of its existence is foolish. I mean,
my cynicism and sadness is that it's just not shocking to anybody.
As much as NASCAR may try to distance itself from that, it's a living, breathing part of their sport.
We need to understand that racism continues to be the underbelly of American society.
That this happens in the year 2020 is just beyond belief.
Let's just remember that until the last 2 weeks, NASCAR endorsed and embraced this sort of performative racism week in and week out by embracing and wrapping itself in the Confederate flag.
I am white, so I apologize.
Holy frioles and guacamole.
888-971. Hey, well, it could have been a noose. It might have been a noose. It was a quasi noose. I'm Larry Elder.